There's a little leftover pizza, Elijah, if you're hungry. I brought enough for everybody.
And that started out our live recording. Get this muted to make sure. There it is.
I will
Just like
pass
that.
because it's midnight over here.
Midnight over there, and it is 6 p.m. in Texas, which means it's time for Talk Time with TJ Triple T number 229 on May 19th, 2026. My name is TJ Zebel. I like to tongue in cheek refer to myself as a professional problem solver. And I always follow that up with, no, I don't know everything. I just have a unique way of asking lots of questions, and I've got an amazing tribe to help me find the answers that we're looking for. I want to welcome you all, those of you here on the call, and those out in YouTube, where I get to say, hi, Mom. Mom's up in Minnesota, checking it out. Glad you guys are here. And speaking of YouTube, for those of you that are on YouTube watching live or watching the recording, and those of you on the call, if you do me a big favor, do the YouTube stuff that doesn't cost you anything other than a little bit of time for a couple of clickety clicks. Click the subscribe button, ring the bell so you know when we're back on the air. Click some likes. Leave some comments. I would love to hear your thoughts on some of the stuff that we bring out. And while you're online, do me a favor, check out my website at www.thetSWB.com, thetallskinnywhiteboy.com. There you'll find a listing of some of the stuff I'm blessed to do, things I get to help people with, such as helping people with depression, anxiety, phobias, PTSD, grief, fear. I also offer corporate coaching and work with athletes from beginner all the way up to pro level. But still doing a lot of relationship stuff. So if you got somebody that is struggling in a relationship or struggling to get in or out of a relationship, have them give me a call. I do offer a free 30-minute consultation. That's your chance to chat with me for 30 minutes, and we'll go over what things you are up against, what kind of things you want to accomplish, and if I feel that we're a fit, I will let you know. But I also promise you, if I believe that we are not a fit, I will let you know, and I will do my best to find somebody to help you get the results that you are looking for. And that's done. Now it's time to move on to the tie of the week. This is number 2 of the 3 new ones that I received. And once again, got a little poo on my tie. Poosty. So if you got a tie that you would like featured on Triple T, send it out. Mark, you didn't get to see the new tie of the week. Brand new. Got 3 new ones from a fan, so.
All right.
Yeah, a little poo on my tie. So we got that caught up. Now let's catch up with you guys. Who's got, anybody got anything cool that they want to share from the last time that we were together? Any updated? Mark, what's up?
I just was curious. They have various names for different groups of animals. And we had so many squirrels last week show up that I had to look up the term for a group of squirrels, and it's called a scurry
A
of
scurry.
squirrels. Scurry of squirrels.
And we do have our fair share of squirrels here. If you're new to Triple T, hang around, you'll find out. I've got squirrels that know squirrels that bring squirrels for the show. And yes, we're not talking about the furry ones outside. We're talking the ones where you're talking all of a sudden, squirrel. So, other than a scurry of squirrels, anybody else got anything cool and exciting they want to share from the last time we were together? Lenora let me know that she's going to be running late tonight. Her and her husband ran over to the trainers for the little puppy. So getting that going. If we don't, then I guess I'll give you the breakdown for those of you that are new to Triple T or watching the recording for the very first time. It's a 2-hour show. First hour, I do my best to try and get through 3 topics that I picked for the week. And when that hour is up, hour number 2 starts off. We change things up with open mic, open platform. Anybody on the call can bring up a question or a topic. And I let everybody on the call answer first because I like to learn as well. And after everybody's answered, if I feel I've still got something to add to it, that's when I throw in my 2 centavos. And we go from there. And man, I tell you, 2 hours goes by, bada bing, bada boom. So if we don't have anything else to share, I guess it's time to get into the topics of the week for number 229. Tonight's topics are judgment, universe, and microscope telescope. So, judgment. Oh, who's never felt judgment? Speak up now. Yes, and the silence was deafening. And we've all felt judgment. We've passed judgment. We've judged others. We've judged ourselves. We've been to school, which had its own levels of judgment. And of course, those of you that have been around Triple T for a while, you know that a good portion of these topics come from my sessions with my clients. Hey, Michael. And this is 2 of these are, well, all 3 of these, but the first 2 came from one of my clients. And the part of what it came up with is the reality that judgment is inevitable. It's just part of dealing with humans in their natural environment. If you don't want to be judged, I don't know of anything other than death. And I don't know that, even there you go up for the final judgment. But other than that, you can become a hermit and live on the top of a mountain, and something tells me that you're still going to judge yourself a little bit about your decision to go up there, your decision on what you decided to have for supper, and so the trick is, how do we make sure that we don't internalize and overthink the judgments that are inevitable? Especially if you're in a relationship. Good times. Because it's one thing to have some drunk meth head homeless person on the street, and I'm not judging them, but I'm judging them. And if you're walking by a homeless drunk meth head who's passing judgment on you, it's pretty easy to go, whatever, dude, best wishes. I hope you get your life straightened out, but yeah, whatever. When it's coming down from peers, those in authority, those that you really care about, those judgments have a much harder weight to them. And it takes some inner work, some outer work, and communication to learn how to set up boundaries to communicate where the judgment is. And if you're the one passing judgment, learning how to deliver it in, I guess, the most proper way. I was going to say loving way, but we've talked about labels and values and criteria quite often here on Triple T. And different people want the judgments delivered differently. Now, we talked about the word respect. Two people in a relationship. What's important to you about a relationship? Respect. And you separate them and ask them what that means. And one says, well, if you need to tell me something, you take an account of, my feelings and all of the above. And the other person says, if you need to tell me something, you just get right to it and drop the hammer and let me know because I can handle it. Well, that's how you're going to deliver your judgment. How are you going to deliver your observations? And so believing that you're going to be able to be in a relationship of any type, whether it's romantic or work or neighbors or all the above, to believe that you're going to be able to go on with a total lack of judgment is very improbable. And so I've open to you guys. Do you have any input, ahas, epiphanies, advice for people on the topic of judgment? Holly got her hand up quick. Holly.
Oh gosh, my squirrels are running wild. So the first thing that has been popping in my head is, judgment for a purpose. What is the purpose of you judging? And if you're judging because you're deciding whether or not you're going to trust somebody, whether or not you're going to be vulnerable with somebody, whether or not a situation is safe and you're going to enter it or you're not going to enter it, whether you're going to choose option A versus option B, we have to judge. I mean, it's not always people. Sometimes it's situations or things or whatever it may be. You can't make a decision without judgment. That's very different than I want to judge them so that I can know that I'm better than them. I'm going to judge them to make a moral judgment. I don't know their history. I don't know their chemical analysis in their brain. I don't know what was under their control. I don't know what was not under their control. It's not for me to say if they're a horrible human being, if they're an amazing human being, anything like that. But it is for me to say, yes, I will put myself in their power. Yes, I will be vulnerable with them. And I think those are two different things. Also, another thought that came to me, this is specifically about, and a big one is they owe me. We don't get to decide that. A judge might be able to say, I rendered judgment in favor of the plaintiff. I rendered judgment in favor of what it would be, defendant. But we don't get to tell somebody else they owe us. That's a third party. But when it comes to, I'm better than them, the other thought that came to me is when we're doing that kind of judgment, often what we're really doing is indirectly judging ourselves.
Yes.
And all we're doing is it's a mirror of how we're judging ourselves. And whether we are trying to make ourselves feel better, whether we're trying to make ourselves worse, comparison for that sort of thing doesn't help anybody.
Great insights. Thank you for sharing that. Michael.
Hey, good buddy.
Hey.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Also, with judgment, when you're talking about the homeless crackhead, we're judging them as well.
Yes.
And the biggest thing with that, we will say, okay, well, this guy, I really don't care what his opinion or their opinion is. In my industry with sales, I have people that come in, I have no idea who they are, what they are. I look at a little sheet of paper and I make a judgment as well. Now, what I train my reps to do is make a judgment for the positive. And like these people are going to desire and they can afford what I present them daily. And we find what we look for. And if we look for the reasons why they're going to do it, we'll find the reasons why they're going to do it. If we look for the reasons they're not, then they're not. So does that help a little bit?
Yeah, great insights. Thank you for sharing.
You got it.
Mark,
Well, again, my thoughts went to sorting. The first thing a human being does when in any situation is good, bad, and then it's second level is familiar, unfamiliar, and then the third one we do automatically is friend or foe. And then we're going to make our judgments based on how we sort situations, how we sort people. That was one thought. And then squirrel came by, and I was doing a session with a couple, and they both had their number one value was honesty. Okay, but their definitions were widely different. Like you were demonstrating, yeah. Again, his definition was you got to tell me the truth, no matter whether it hurts my feelings or not. And that was his judgment on honesty. That quality. Hers was, well, I want you to tell me the truth, but I want you to tell me in such a way that doesn't hurt my feelings. So they're both feeling unappreciated, unheard because, and they were arguing about their different definitions. So they're making a judgment on their partner based on the value of, they both had the same value, but it was why, it was causing contention because they were applying judgment to how the other person presented the information. So
yeah,
those are my two thoughts.
good stuff. Holly,
Of course, I would have more thoughts because of what everybody said. Another thought that came to my mind is with judgment, oftentimes, we either make the right judgment or the wrong judgment. And in statistics, we call these false positives, false negatives, or true positives and true negatives. And one of the things that just kind of came into my mind, so a false positive is, maybe you trust somebody you shouldn't have trusted. A false negative is you didn't trust somebody you should have trusted. And just to give two examples of where we're extreme, if we're going to, execute somebody for murder, we want to err on the side of, we want to be sure we believe they're murder. That's why we say, they're guilty. That's why we say, not guilty instead of innocent. But we say guilty, But on the flip side, if you're in a medical trial and you're going to take a medicine and it's, will this medicine kill me? You want to err on the side of, yes, maybe it will kill me until it's proven that it won't kill me. Just as two examples. And so anyway, I was just thinking about in our interactions with people, because I'm sure this is mostly about people, there's two things. First of all, ask yourself in any given situation, what is the cost of a false positive and what is the cost of a false negative? So for example, if I'm, as a woman, if I'm walking down the road in the middle of the night, I work graves, so this could happen, in a dangerous neighborhood, and I see someone on the road who, maybe is dressed in a way that looks like they might be part of a gang, that sort of thing. The danger of trusting this person if they're not trustworthy, I might get robbed, I might get beaten up, I might die. It's really, really bad if I trust this person and I shouldn't. But, if I don't trust this person and they were trustworthy, maybe I didn't spend 5 minutes talking to an amazing person. Not saying that isn't sad, but, it's pretty obvious where those are. But if I'm in a school class and it's just a matter of saying hi to somebody who's a little bit shy, who doesn't look like they're getting along with everybody, giving them a chance could mean that they get included in the group, that they gain confidence, that they live up to their full potential, whereas not approaching them, if they are, the flip side anyway, not approaching them means that I might miss out on this amazing person. Approaching somebody who isn't that great means that I probably have a few minutes with somebody who's kind of nasty, but I'm surrounded by people. I'm safe. It's probably not going to go too terribly wrong introducing myself. Now, that's very different than giving them my phone number. Like there's so many different levels. So question one is, what is the cost of misjudging it? And question two is, if the cost is high both ways, what is the cost of waiting and gathering more data?
Yes.
Because often the right thing to do is to gather more data before you make the judgment.
Great insights again. And yeah, all of these things, that's the part of why judgment is so wide and varied, especially in the human condition. Another one that came up was, profiling. It is such a form, I guess you could call professional profiling trained judgment. I had some friends and I that started a game a long time ago, and we would be out somewhere and we'd start profiling the people that we saw in the area and try and figure out what kind of work they do and things of that nature just by observing them. And because we made it a game, it made it easy for me to approach the people, and I would say, out of curiosity, we're playing this game, we're just trying to figure out what kind of work you do, and we've got 3 different answers. If you don't mind, would you tell me what kind of work you do, and then I'll tell you what 3 we came up with. And you'd be surprised at the amount of people that were like, really? Well, I do blah, blah, blah. What'd you guys come up with? And it was a fun way to start conversations, and we've met some really cool people that way. But it was interesting how the process of judgment in that form of profiling would lead you to pay even more close attention to what they're wearing, how they're acting. Same thing with seeing vehicles out in a parking lot. Okay, what kind of person owns that powder blue Prius over there? What person owns that jacked up monster 4x4 with the smokestack out the middle? What kind of person owns that BMW over there? And so if anybody tries to, I don't judge. Yeah, you do. Oh, no. Yeah, you do. It's what you do with the judgment and what it allows you to do once you've passed that judgment on. Hey, Guillermo. Guillermo, to bring you up to speed quick, we're talking about judgment and all the fun aspects that go along with it. Anybody else got any other insights, ahas, epiphanies on stuff like that? Now, again, remember, we're not only passing judgment on external. We all have those fun little voices in our heads that are passing judgment on everything, including us. And the challenge there is, what are these voices judging you on, and where did the voices come from? Who programmed the voices? And why do we give them so much leverage? Guillermo, oh yeah, Latinos love judgment. See. But that's where when I'm working with clients dealing with a lot of, like a lot of anxiety comes from internal judgment, internal and external, but a lot of internal. And when we start diving in and figuring out, okay, where is this voice coming from? Whose voice is it? How old is the voice? Who is it speaking to? And some of those internal voices are nasty. Wow. But my clients, once they get control of it and realize that they do have control over it, they are able to either shut down the voices or give the voices a different job. Mark.
Yeah. I can't remember who taught me that, but the voice of authority, it's usually up above our head, which usually indicates like a parent or something. And if you just move the location, that's one thing I was taught.
Yeah.
The voice isn't so judgmental, I guess. And if you want to have more fun with it, you can change the timbre pitch. You can make it into Goofy saying the same thing. And how are you going to judge what they're telling you if it's in Goofy's voice? Gosh. So
Yep.
you're a lousy human being, because. So I don't do a good Goofy, but I do a great Elmo, and Anyway, but the other thing that popped up was sometimes the voices, like I said, they can empower you,
Yes.
and again, as I get older, I used to hear my mom, I hear my mom's voice more often, and there was a time in my life that I was experiencing a huge degree of stress, and I heard that voice of authority say to me, "Mark, knock it off." And I became immediately calm because you got to do what mom says. So
Yep.
sometimes, like I said, that other part of you can be, maybe it can be judgmental, but it also can be something better, basically, and that I embrace that. Like I said, that judgment, that I was being silly, so, and it was empowering.
And Squirrel just showed up yesterday. I was at the grocery store, and sometimes the judgment of what you witnessed can be on, and you can have a little fun with it. And this situation was a mother and the daughter, I'm guessing around 15, 16, son around that 11 to 13 age. But the son comes up with one of those clear plastic containers with sandwiches made in it, croissant sandwiches. And I could see him walking up to mom with that energy of, okay, mom, we should get these, and we need, and I was walking by and I could see mom's look. And I started cracking up and I couldn't help myself. I backstepped and I looked, and of course they look at me like, can we help you? And I looked at Mom and I said, I know that look. I know that look. She's like, huh? I said, I've had that look given to me. I've given that look. I know that look. And I pointed at him and I said, you know that look. What look is she giving you now? Mom, we really need these sandwiches. And Mom and the daughter started cracking up. And the kid's like, dude, are you helping me or are you hurting me? Come on. And I said, I looked at him and I said, this is where sales starts. Everybody's been in sales their entire life. I said, so here you are. You've got these sandwiches and you're trying to sell Mom on believing she needs to buy them for whatever situation. Mom, we really need these because, well, you work so hard and this would save you some time. They're already made and they look really good. And by now, Mom's totally cracking up because she knows exactly what I'm talking about. So the judgment there, of course, when I stopped and walked back, they're like, what does this guy want? And now the kid's trying to judge if I'm helping him or hurting his sales pitch. And Mom, of course, is understanding the lesson that I'm providing and the humor in it. And so this was in the meat department. Well, you know how those areas are shorter to get around. And I was coming back around and there's Mom and the son putting the sandwiches back. And I said, so did she give you the we can make these at home talk or was it the money talk? And she cracked up again. And he goes, what? I said, obviously she didn't give you the we can make this at home talk or you would know exactly what I'm talking about. So again, there's so many different layers and venues and approaches surrounding judgment. And if we know that there's no way to get away from it, the more we can understand how to work with it and make it work for us, even as Mark pointed out, voice of authority, the voices in our head, where are they coming from? Are they from here? Are they from here? Are they back there? Are they up here in front of us? And sometimes simply recognizing, oh, that voice is always up here. It always has that tone. And if we can change the tone, change the voice, and shrink it down below us to where when it talks, we can look down and go, okay, are you right? Or is this real? Is this logical? Is this helping me? Is this not helping me? You can process it much easier and be able to make it work in your favor. Any other, Holly?
Oh, geez. Once again, my squirrels are going a million miles a minute. So another thought, of course, to remember with judgment is, now I've seen many, many different numbers on this, depending on which source I go to. But remember, whenever we're taking in data, that we take it's estimated the human brain receives about 11 million bits of data per second. But it processes 40 or 50 bits per second. And then if you think about it, if you're in a room and you're looking forward, you're not seeing anything that's happening behind you. You're not seeing anything that's happening outside of that room. So that's just what you're actually processing. There's so much that you're not processing at any given moment. And then whenever you pull up a memory, you edit it. So every single time you pull it up, you're changing it a little, you're changing it a little, you're changing it a little, and it's emotionally charged.
Yes.
And so when we're thinking, whether it's even in the moment of someone judging me today, or it's that internal voice judging me from, wherever it came from, we may say, oh, this is what mom was saying to me, and that's where this judgment came from. But always, because sometimes when you say that, it's like, but mom cared about me and mom was looking out for me, or maybe it's dad, or whoever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you also know that you even interpreted what mom was saying the way she intended to say it? So like one example that comes to mind is I remember one of my siblings darting out into traffic when traffic was coming one time. And, mom was with me and I was there, and basically we all screamed at the top of our lungs and, we're yelling at the poor kid, and, they didn't understand what's going on. But I don't know why this is what popped into my head, but it is. If that sibling internalized, I'm a bad person for crossing the street from that is not the message that was intended to be sent. The message that was intended to be sent is your life is in danger right this second, watch out. But easily, because they didn't understand what was going on, they easily could have interpreted as, I'm a bad person, mom's always mad at me, so anyway, if you're ever feeling like it's not, I can't let go of it because they cared about me and there must be something right in it, you may not even have gotten the message they intended to send in the first place. So always consider that.
And that, again, right back to relationships. The communication, the backgrounds, the how you were raised, all these voices inside. If you haven't learned how to control, process, understand all the above, you're dealing with your own profiling with another human who's dealing with the same type of stuff. As if we needed any more fun stuff in relationships. And so that's where, with the work that I do and work that Mark does and stuff like that, trying to help people not only understand the judgment that they're putting on their partner, where did that come from, and what is happening when you're receiving the same type of judgment from them. Mark.
Real quick, I just got a millisecond of insight and changing common phrase, act in haste, repent in leisure. How about judge in haste, repent in leisure?
What was that?
Judge in haste.
Yeah.
But then repent in leisure.
There you go. Judge in haste, repent in leisure. Yes. Anybody else got anything before we jump into another topic here to try and fit at least two in? Yes, no, maybe so. And you're welcome to come back to this, and you can even bring up these topics in hour two if the squirrel brings by a question regarding it. But we're gonna move on to topic number 2 for the evening: universe. Oh yes, that's a very big topic, very big. This one came from one of my clients, but it reminded me of something that Wayne Dyer had said, where we have to decide, do we live in a friendly or a hostile universe? Is the universe for us or against us? And it also coincides with the saying, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And it's so fun for me to watch my clients when this collection of information hits them. That what you look for is typically what you find. So if you believe you're living in a hostile universe, you're going to see a lot of bad stuff going on. If you believe that you are living in a friendly universe, you'll find more of that. The bad and the good are always happening anyway. So it's your opportunity to decide what to look for. Oh, but TJ, you don't understand. I turn on the news. Stop with the news then. Well, how am I going to know how bad the world is? Somebody will tell you. Start believing that there's still good in the world. Look for that. And my client this morning literally was in tears, joyous tears, because now that they have taken on the mindset that they are living in a friendly universe, that the world is working for their favor. They're still living in reality, quote unquote, but the things that have changed for them, the level to which they have changed, and things that they can't even fully explain are almost beyond their comprehension, other than the fact that they have made the decision to believe that they live in a friendly universe, that good things are going to happen. All things that are, even the stuff that isn't quote unquote good, is happening for their benefit. You know, just like the way I am currently able to know all of you on this call. I had to lose everything I had in Minnesota. I had to end up in San Diego and go through some rough stuff so that I could meet Dr. David, so I could learn this stuff, so that we could be here tonight talking about it. And yes, there were some times when you feel like the dump pipe for the sewer district is right over the top of your life, and you're like, oh, and it becomes pretty easy to feel bad, sorry for yourself. Or you can adopt the idea that I'm not sure why this happened, but it's all for the good. Any inputs, ahas, epiphanies on that one? No? Well, that was easy. If we got no... Oh, Mark.
Yeah, I choose to believe that the universe is always listening. And I think that's, how part of my operating system, and, if you try to manifest something, the universe will hear you. Like I said, as Dyer would say, you clean up that connecting link between you and that, whatever that is out there. And it's just, the future is just formless energy, and it takes all our, the universe takes all our intents. We used to call that prayer in Catholic school. And manifests things. And if it's done the right way, like I said, manifestation is how the universe forms the future. So and it's always listening. So be careful what you say, you know. um,
Yes.
sometimes, you know, if I ask the universe to send me some new referrals, and an hour later the phone rings, you want to put that down to coincidence? Go ahead, you know.
Yeah.
But um, you know, what was the story I had about that? Oh, my it was about The Secret. And every word of this story is true. My daughter was working for this secondhand merchandise place. It's not around anymore. It's called Building 19. And one of her coworkers came into her office and she said, "Have you heard about this thing called The Secret?" And she said, "No." She said, "Well, what you have to do is you just have to, for 5 minutes, twice a day, you need to just sit quietly and imagine an outcome, a wonderful outcome, just sale just falling into your lap. You go to your boss, and your boss is all excited. Oh my God, you're the best salesperson ever. We're going to make a gajillion dollars for this." And, you know, and 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 you feel the pride and all the feelings of having, done something like this. And you do that for 5 minutes twice a day. Well, my daughter's a little bit of an overachiever, and um, she started doing it 5 times a day. And I think the universe was having a little fun with her, because about 3 weeks later, the phone rang, and the guy said, "Yeah, I got all this merchandise. I got a web store. I've got all this junk that Building 19 used to love, posters, coffee cups, keychains, pennants. And I just want to get rid of it, pennies on the dollar." She brought the deal to her boss, and he was overjoyed. "We're going to make a gajillion dollars on this." And um, she, but it freaked her out, and she never tried it again, because the name of the website, the web store, was theuniverseislistening.com. And that's 100% the truth.
Wow.
Yeah. I asked her a few years ago, "You ever try that secret thing again?" She goes, "No, no, I never tried it again." But yeah, I think the universe was like sorting through and went, "Oh yeah, you're gonna do it 5 times a day? Okay. We're gonna send you this one," and and the phone rang basically, and because the universe is always listening.
Yep. That's awesome. Anybody else got any, Holly?
It's kind of redundant, but I'll just point out. So Sean Acor talks about in The Happiness Advantage about the Tetris effect, where he talks about, I call it emotional inertia, but it's basically, if you're in a good state, your body wants to stay in a good state. If you're in a crappy state, your body wants to stay in a crappy state.
Yeah.
If you're in a neutral state, it wants to stay neutral. But, as we just mentioned, 11 million bits of data, you can only process, maybe 40 of them. The mind, if you're in a crappy state, you could have 10 million good bits of data that say life is awesome. And, maybe another 500,000 or whatever that say it's neutral, but you will still manage to find 40 bad ones if you're in a bad state. And if you're, kind of the reverse, if you're in a good state. So, this idea that we think we know reality, no, we just know the reality that we're primed to perceive at the moment. But then the other thing that was coming into my mind, so I was driving today, and off to the side of the road, there was this big fire. And, the curiosity side of me just wanted to look at that fire so badly, to see what I could learn about it, to see what I could understand about it. But I had to remember, back in driver's ed, where they tell you, it's called rubbernecking. If I look towards that fire, I'm going to drive towards that fire. I can't help it. I won't be thinking about it. I won't be doing it intentionally. And so, a lot of that, I think, is, very on this concept of, law of attraction. If you want to know how it works, if you pay attention, if you think everybody's always rejecting you, and you think that everybody hates you, you're not going to take chances. If you think it's impossible to succeed, you're not going to take chances. If you think that it's guaranteed to succeed and that everybody loves you and the universe is working for you, you're going to take those opportunities. You're going to see setbacks as just the stepping stone to the next success, you know. So, you know, you don't even have to believe in energy, or you don't have to believe in any of that to see the mechanics behind it of why it works. It definitely works, and there's a very clear reason why it works.
Yep. And Elijah, for those of you that are watching or on YouTube or watching the recording, you don't get the privilege of seeing the comments. And Elijah had put in the comments what she was describing was the emotional refractory period. And yeah, it's also the same as if you're driving down the freeway and somebody tells you to count all of the blue cars for 2 miles, and then when you get done and you're like, I saw 15, they say, and how many red ones? You weren't looking for the red ones, even though they were there. You were paying attention to the blues. And that's where things can get trapped in. And I'm going to do a real quick segue into our third topic, so I can get 3 in tonight. And yes, Elijah, I'll put a reticular activating system. Yes. All of them. And this should tie in as well with microscope, telescope. This one actually came from an article my wife sent me. And it was the idea of we live mainly in the microscope, keeping track of everything around us, each minute, each hour, each day, what's going on, all the above. But we also have to take time to look through the telescope, to look forward and backward, to judge and be able to track where we are today. It fell right in line with those of you who have heard me talk about reverse engineering your year, getting a day planner for a year, and deciding what you're going to do throughout the year so that you don't get to the end of the year and go, oh, the year is over, and I lived the exact same year as I did the last 20 years. That's the telescope. But also taking a look through the telescope and deciding which power you're going to have the telescope set on for what you're trying to achieve. If you're trying to change some of your habits, the telescope is very important. What are my daily habits? What am I doing? What am I not doing to move me forward towards the goal that I want to achieve? If your goal is to get in better health, better shape, definitely the microscope and a short throw telescope to the past of what have I done in the last 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, 5 years to get to where I am today. How did this happen? Then looking through the microscope into thought processes going on in your head regarding the goals, daily activities, all of the above, and then looking back into the telescope to the future, 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. And luckily, we don't have to have some monstrosity of a telescope trying to look out 20 years in the future. We can do it with intention. This is what I would like my life to be 20 years from now. But you have to remember to reverse engineer quite a bit to get there. In accordance to using the microscope to figure out how to make those just subtle changes, those little 1% changes, those 1% change daily. Any input, ahas, epiphanies on that? Holly.
I don't even know if this will make sense, but some thoughts go through my head when you were talking about that. The Hermetic principle, as above, so below, as within, so without. It was just kind of this idea of, I always think when I think of that principle about how, if you go down to the atom and you zoom in, you see electrons orbiting, the nucleus of an atom. But if you zoom out to, say, the solar system level, you see planets orbiting the sun. It's not identical, but it's a similar principle.
Yes.
One of the things I was just thinking about is, I think as you zoom out and you zoom in, the big is made of the small, all that sort of thing. But I think it's an interesting thought that if you're dealing with any problem, or whether you're making goals, whatever it may be, zooming in and zooming out can tell you the same data from a different viewpoint, and it's still the same data. The other thing that just kind of popped into my head, we were talking about what to do about time last week, I think it was, about how to get more time. The big difference between zooming out and zooming in is time. How much time does it take an electron to orbit the center of an atom compared to how long does it take, Pluto to orbit the sun? I was just kind of thinking it is interesting that if you could slow it down, sometimes what you need to understand it is you need it to go really fast so you can see the full pattern. But sometimes you need to slow it down so that you can see in slow motion what it's doing. So both steps definitely can help. And I do wonder energetically if there's a way to use that principle to manipulate time as well. But I don't know, I'm just throwing that out there.
Good way to look at stuff. Thank you for that. Mark.
Yeah, an exercise that I think Dr. David taught us, zooming in, zooming out, but you're standing there and all of your problems are surrounding you and they seem pretty big. And magically he said, I'm going to use his special effects, and whoosh, now you're twice the size as you were, and you're looking down and you see all these things you thought were insurmountable problems. There were like all these big, objects around you, and then you do it again and whoosh, you're as big as the house. Now you're looking down at all those things that you thought were so big, so large, so overwhelming. And then you do it one more time and whoosh, you're as big as a giant, your head's touching the clouds, and you look all the way back down and you realize, change your perspective. And it's like, I guess those things weren't so big. I can do that. That's okay. I can manage that. This is, it's not as big as I thought it was. And I think that's kind of at the heart of what you were saying about the microcosm and the macrocosm, and, the telescope versus the microscope. Again, perspective, change your perspective about the challenges in your life.
Absolutely. And that changed our perspective right to the very end of the first hour. So if you're, again, new to Triple T or watching the recording for the first time, this is where a little magic happens and we change things up. And for the next hour, it's going to be open mic, open platform. Anybody on the call can bring up a question or a topic. I let everybody on the call answer first, because I like to learn as well. And so The fun time starts right now. Who has a question or a topic to start the hour off? Mark.
Yeah, this was a question I formulated for last week, but um, again, we ran out of time. I thought, I don't know. Sometimes I bring something up and it will last 40 minutes. Sometimes there's crickets. But question I formulated for last week is how important is it to have a large frame of reference in your life? Experience things, go places. They always used to say traveling broadens a person. Open yourself up to new places, new vistas, new experiences. You get a large frame of reference, okay? And, I think it makes you more creative, you know, and, I was working with this young man who had a very small frame of reference. He had developmental delays, and his name was Bruce. He's probably passed away now, so I can talk about him. And, one day I brought a sound machine to his house. We were doing a session at his house. And so I put on the Babbling Brook, okay? And I thought that's universal. Everybody could be able to identify that. And I asked Bruce, I said, Bruce, what's that sound? And he thought really hard for a second. He goes, oh, I know what it is. That's the sound of the water going into the tub. And I had to listen with new ears. And I'm like, son of a gun. He's right. That is the sound of the water going in. He had never been in a forest. He had never been in a glade. He'd never witnessed or experienced a babbling brook. So his frame of reference, he was able to correctly identify that from his frame of reference as the sound the water makes going into the tub. And then I changed it to the one on the sound machine for rain. I said, Bruce, what's that? And he listened and he listened. He was, oh, I know what that sound is. That's the sound of the bacon frying in the pan. And I had to listen again with new ears and go, son of a gun. He's right. That is the sound. He'd never sat there depressed, just gazing out the window, listening to the rain hit the tar. Okay. His frame of reference was definitely a lot smaller than mine, but he wasn't wrong. Within his frame of reference, that was the correct answer. That was the sound of bacon frying in the pan.
Yeah.
So, like I said, you can know everything in the world. And I think this was in Good Will Hunting, but you do not know what it smells like in Trinity College, where they have the Book of Kells and they turn one page a day. And there's thousands upon thousands of folios. I've been in there. And like I say, you can know everything in the world, but if you haven't been there, you will not know what it smells like in that library at Trinity College in Dublin. So, as larger frame of reference, experiences, adventures, whatever you want to call them, it tends to make us more creative, like I said, I've been around a fair amount of time, and I talk to these young people about things like, a standard shift, 3 on the tree, and they look at me, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
Or I talk about a payphone. You mean you had to stand in line and wait for other people to make calls? And the third one is like the newspaper box on the corner. They have no frame of reference for that. But I've lived it, so I have that frame of reference. And I think, but the question remains is how important is it to have as large a frame of experiences as possible in your life?
Good question. Who's got some input answers for Mark's question? Holly.
I'll take a stab at it, and I may change my mind halfway through what I'm saying too. It's a very interesting question. So the first thing that kind of popped into my head is it really depends on who you are and what your life purpose is. And I don't want to sound too esoteric with life purpose. I don't care if you're somebody who believes, that everybody's given energetically by, God, the universe, source, whatever you want to call it, is given a specific life purpose, that this is what you're supposed to do, or, if you're atheist and this is more just, I think you could look at this from a Darwinian perspective of the reason there are people in our society that have these traits and these combinations is because it's been shown to be biologically useful. It doesn't matter what the why is behind it. But I think that, there are some situations where, because I was thinking a lot about, known terrain and unknown terrain. Jordan Peterson talks a lot about that, chaos and, what's the other order, and being on the middle of the two. And I think that for some people, they fulfill an amazing purpose by becoming the person who knows their piece of the world really, 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 really well. But there are other people who the way they add value, the way they perform their life purpose is by knowing as much about as many different things as they possibly can. And I think there's people all over the spectrum on this. But specifically, I think if you're going to talk about what a lot of us do, if you want to be a really good hypnotist, a really good therapist, a really good, anything in this kind of a field, I think it's valuable for us to have a very large frame of reference. And the main reason for that is because I think Mark gave a perfect example of it. When you're working with somebody else, you need the ability to adapt to their frame of reference and work with it. And I mean, I know a lot of that is just, I worked with somebody once who, I don't even know how many languages he speaks, and he knows so much about so many different cultures. And I admit there was a point where I just had to I couldn't even echo him because I didn't understand the words that were coming out of his mouth. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of it turned into oh, okay, what then? What would be useful? What could you do that would help you? I was just, but you know what? It worked. It ended up working because he knew what he was dealing with. And, he was able to give me just enough that I could grab onto something. But I was not following his experience because he just had such a big range of reference and I didn't. So I'm not saying we can't do it. And I will say it was a fascinating experience too. And I may not have followed everything he was doing, but I learned a lot from it. But, if we're able to follow and say, oh, yes, I do know what a babbling brook sounds like, but I also know what water coming out of a bathtub sounds like. And, ooh, I can see where you're coming from. Now let me adapt my metaphors so they fit within the frame that you're bringing. I think that's huge. I think it's also just kind of interesting, too, that it doesn't even necessarily matter about frame of reference per se, but there are a lot of things that what we think we're seeing, this kind of even goes back to the, what interpretation of you putting on the world. We're talking about the 11 million versus the 50 that you're doing. Sometimes you could take the same 50 pieces of data and get something different from it. I don't know if this is true, but I was once told that the smell of Parmesan cheese and the smell of sweaty gym socks is the same. That the molecule basically is the same, but that the difference between how we perceive it is going to be context. So, when you go in and it's like, ooh, the amazing Parmesan cheese, isn't this amazing? Versus I'm in the gym and I know it's a sweaty gym sock. So, it's fascinating too, that even if you know both experiences, your brain goes one place, somebody else's brain goes somewhere else. I think that's very similar to, we talk about definitions of what's your definition of respect and my definition of respect. It could be as much as what's your definition of the sound and what's my definition of the sound? What's your definition of the smell? What's my definition of the smell? So I find that just absolutely fascinating how we can all be having such different experiences, but that when we communicate, sometimes we can change our perspective and have a different experience without even going somewhere new. Just seeing it, Mark said multiple times, seeing it through different eyes. I think that's such a cool thing that we don't even have to go somewhere else to have a different experience and expand our horizons. All we have to do is see it through somebody else's eyes. And I think that's really cool.
Exactly. That's why one of the sayings of travel is one of the few things that you can invest in that makes you richer. Mark.
On that note, Squirrel came by singing John Denver's song, Rocky Mountain High, and there's a line in it that TJ can relate to, I'm sure. I know he'd be a poorer man if he never saw an eagle fly. Another way of looking at it.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Thank you, Holly. That was very insightful. Like I said, thank you.
Thank you for the question. I love it.
Who else has some input, ahas, epiphanies on frame of reference. And one of the things that came to mind when you were telling your story, Mark, was when you look at the older movies and even the older radio shows and how they made special effects sounds and stuff like that, a horse clopping, and they had a couple of coconuts, and they would know the rhythm. But the one that really amazed me back in the day was Star Wars, when they were showing how they made the sounds in the special effects department, and like the taser rifles firing was actually just somebody on a guy wire for a highline pole with a rod and hitting it, pew 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 pew, and the big things that looked like elephants, the mechanical things when they were walking, that was a large metal shears. Shonk, shonk, shonk. And so sometimes not having the point of reference, as Mark alluded in his story, allows you to open up your mind and see a visual that we know is fantasy. One of my favorites is when they show all the movies of the dinosaurs. How do they know that that was the sound of a T-Rex? How do they know that, because I tell you what, if anybody has ever heard a bull elk call, you look at that massive animal and that shriek that comes out of that animal, you're like, what do that? Something don't match up there. It's like hearing a chihuahua roar like a lion. You're like, wait, there's something just doesn't quite fit there. Michael's got his hand up, and our favorite Lenora's back on with us. Yay!
Yay! Real quick, this is to go towards what Holly was talking about. When you can't relate to somebody or you don't have their frame of reference, at this point, you want to use the most powerful word in the English language that conveys emotion. So now I have a question. Does anybody on here know what the most powerful word that conveys emotion and connection is?
Who's got some guesses?
Disappointment.
So if you're trying to
Imagine.
communicate with somebody, you would say disappointment? You're trying now, here's what we're trying to do. We're trying to relate. So Holly was talking to a person who was using vernacular that she couldn't quite grasp. So how do you relate to somebody like that? That's the question.
Elijah's got an answer.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you now.
I would make the sound of the letter M for mother, like
That's very powerful as well, because then you're in agreement. But what I'm trying to looking for is the single word in the English language that will connect you to almost anybody or everyone you're talking to emotionally.
Okay.
Are you ready?
No, I mean, is the word okay?
No.
Okay.
Okay is good, but this is the word that conveys emotion. So if you're talking to me and I say, okay, pretty soon you're going to think, oh, this guy's tuned out. Potentially. Okay.
Okay.
So the word is as a mother, as a neuroscientist, as an engineer, as a healer, as any walk of life they are, as soon as you say the word as to them, you now connect to them emotionally. So as, in my experience, is the most powerful word in the English language to connect and convey emotion.
Who's got some input, ahas, epiphanies on that? As we all sit here and let
Crickets.
that pontificate and soak in.
But as a construction worker, TJ,
What's that?
I think you froze.
Yep.
He said
There
as
you
a
are.
construction worker.
You locked up on us. I think you did it again.
Good freeze frame.
Yes. Thinking man.
here we are.
There we go.
So I didn't hear what Lenore said.
I repeated what you said. You said as a construction.
Construction worker.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep, and then you froze.
Ah, there we go.
That's why we were all like,
As a construction worker, as a hypnotherapist, as an NLP professional, as a coach, you can use the word as and connect on their level with almost anybody on anything.
Sounds like a conjunction.
Function.
Conjunction, junction. What's your function? Hooking up words and making them sound right. There's a whole bunch of people just had a little flashback there.
Oh, baby. Come on now.
Uh-huh. What's another super powerful word in the English language when communicating with people?
No.
No?
No is super powerful, guys. And it will get you out of all kinds of shit.
Yes. And it's interesting with all the traveling that I did, how many languages use the word no or recognize the word no. Yes can be, very different in different languages, but no seemed to be one of the more common ones throughout different languages.
Well, in this case, okay, which is the word I said earlier, is the most understood word across all languages all around the world. Wherever you go, whatever language people speak, they understand okay.
Huh. And what is one word now that is the same in almost every language out there currently?
Please? No?
It's selfie.
Oh, selfie? Because it's not a real word. I mean, it became a word.
It became a word
So it's a real word now. Probably
Yes.
made it into the Oxford Dictionary by now, but it wasn't a word when I was younger.
Yes, exactly. That's why a little factoid I heard on some show, and they were pointing out that it's the most universal word throughout languages now. Everybody knows selfie.
Or if you're a Ted Lasso fan, an Ussie. Want to take an Ussie?
Hussy.
An Ussie. Like us, you and me, us, an Ussie.
Yep, an Aussie.
Yes.
Okay, well, we got, Holly, what you got for us?
So just kind of going back to the original conversation, I also had this thought too that, we talk about, travel broadens the mind. But I was watching a show the other day where one of the main characters, they were talking about how she had traveled and, she went to India and she stayed in all the, rich fancy hotels with all the same people. And then she went to England and she stayed in all the rich fancy hotels with all the same people. You could go to every single country in the world practically, not every, but, practically, and eat at McDonald's at every single one, so I think a lot of times broadening your horizons isn't just about putting yourself in new places. It's also about actually being open to different ways of experiencing life, because it's so easy to think you're giving yourself a variety of experience, but you really aren't. So.
Yep. More good stuff. Is it time for a new topic, new question? Somebody got one? Lenora.
The questions that I had sent, were they asked during the first hour? And I know you know the questions.
Yeah, so I was waiting for you to.
Okay, guys. Oh my God. So my banana peels. Okay. I'm trying to gather my thoughts. What if the universe has been saying yes the entire time, and we're the ones that are creating the delay by our own loops of how is it going to happen? When is it going to happen? I don't think that can happen. With our own doubts, so that we're creating this. And what was the other one? The other one was...
Oh, I did write those down.
Okay.
But I presented them differently than, because
okay.
my clients also brought that up. It's in the it's in the energy.
Oh, in the first hour?
Yeah, but
Okay.
the way you presented, I want you to present your question for the universe.
What if the universe is always saying yes?
Yes, the way
It
that.
is always saying yes.
So, well,
There is no what if. It is.
you know what? I would agree with this. Let's discuss. Open panel. Because some things I've noticed just pop right in. No ifs, ands, or buts. And other things I've noticed when I create loops of tension and tightness and what if and like all this stuff, especially when I talk about like younger parts or like, oh, what if this happens? Like all this shit that I like somehow magically think that is still somewhere in my catalog of importance. And if you're just like, well, the universe will say yes. The things that have transpired so quickly when I'm like, just like not being overly attached to the outcome, but also just saying, yeah, it's going to say yes, no problem. Oh my gosh.
I think you answered it.
It's
that tension and tightness.
It is that tension tightness. I totally agree, because you have this one thought and then it's like, oh, boom, 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 boom. Here are the ones that are going to pull you down. And you're like, oh, those are the loops. Those are the ones that are pulling me down. And the universe already said yes. And then I was like, oh, no. Let me just put up a couple of blocks because I said I wanted it, but I didn't apparently. What the hell? I think this is like one of the plot twists of being human. And here's the other thing that like I have a very big fear about is like I will die and get to the other side and they're like, if you just shut up, Lenora, like you could have, Maybe. Yeah. I see Mark's hand up, so I'm gonna stop talking.
Mike wants to know why you're arguing with the universe.
Oh, I didn't even see this. Oh. Oh, hi, Mike. Oh, hi. Oh, and I like that one too, Guillermo. Why am I arguing with the universe? I'll tell you why. Are you ready? Why? It's because at some point in my life, there was this lovely platter, and people were like, here, enjoy worry, eat it. Let me force feed it down your throat. And so I learned to worry.
Can I remind you of that powerful word? No.
Learned?
No.
Well said.
No. You know when you have like a new baby and they're about
No.
1 year old or well, but you've been around children.
I'm following you. No, I'm
Right.
totally following
They're
you.
like a year old, maybe 18 months old, starting to get a few words going, right?
Yeah.
There's that horrible moment when they learn the word no, right? And everything, if they don't feel like it, it's just no. Come on, let's get your shoes. No. We're going to go outside. No. Come on, let's get changed. No. No, no, no. Are you hungry? No. Right? And it's great because what they're doing is they're practicing. They're like, I'm going to call it not free will, but their free won't. They're practicing their free won't.
Yep.
Free will, but free won't. I like it. I gotta grab my Post-its. I know Mark had his hand up, so I'm gonna pause.
Mark.
Someone once said, always smarter than me, the universe is always screaming down its love for us. And like Elijah said, it's always saying yes. And they can't understand why we can't hear him. We can't hear it. So maybe we have to slow down and open up and, let go and let the universe do its work. But we got to hear that love and that yes. So Elijah's right.
Yep.
If I may quote Sadhguru, you guys know who Sadhguru is, right? He said, you have mistaken your mental activity as being existential truth. Right? But it was just mental activity. And you are not the thoughts that you have. They're just thoughts. You, the consciousness that is you, the I, is the observer. So the thing about thoughts is, if you ignore them, they persist and they gnaw away at you. And so the trick that I find works best for me, and it might not work best for everyone, but it works for me, is I acknowledge the thought, but then I choose not to follow it. So I would say, like, maybe I'm just trying to relax and having chill time or whatever, and I have this horrible thought that I've got this deadline and blah blah blah, but I don't want to think about it right now, or it's troublesome, or it's going to put me in a bad state. Then I will just say to myself, hey, I'm having a thought about that deadline, and I acknowledge that I'm having that thought, but now is not the time for that thought. But once I've done that acknowledgement, then the thought leaves me alone.
Yes.
But if I don't acknowledge the thought, then for the rest of the evening, it's going to keep pounding away on the inside of my head, like, you've got this deadline, you need to go to sleep, you need to do this next thing, don't forget about it. And it starts eating away at you if you try and ignore it. So you don't ignore, you acknowledge, and then make your decision, I suppose, that you will deal with it later, or that now is not the right time, or that I'm busy doing something else, or whatever choice you're making in the moment. But don't try to block it out, because then it persists. That's, at least in my experience, my way of handling things.
Can I go?
Yeah.
Okay, so I love that I acknowledge the thought, but I don't follow it. A great, great reminder. And one that I know I mentioned to you guys, like noticing the loops. So as much of a non-people pleaser I have become over the years, which we're very proud of that, I still find that still a slight twinge of it that loves to be a part of certain very very close relationships, and I am extraordinarily good about catching them, with the exception of my husband, who wonderfully reminds me that I am not responsible for his happiness, even though when something goes wrong and my brain goes like, I need to fix it. So what I feel like you're saying, Elijah, and please by all means correct me if I'm not accurate, to acknowledge that I still feel like I have to be responsible for this, but that I don't have to follow it. I think that's
To
a really good way to
acknowledge
interrupt
that it's just a thought,
It is just a thought, a stupid freaking thought.
right? And I am not my thoughts. The one that I call I is just an observer of everything. Whether it's a thought or an emotion or a whatever, right? I am just the observer. I'm the observer of this body. I'm the observer of how my hands move. I'm the observer of my internal sensations. But they are not me. I am not this body.
Okay, so keep going, because I feel like this could go into identity work too.
This is about awareness. You see, it's possible for somebody to, and knock on wood, right? I hope this doesn't happen to anyone, right? But it's possible for someone to have an accident and wake up in hospital with amnesia and have forgotten everything. They might forget where they are, when they are. They might even forget who they are. They might even forget their own name. But they cannot forget they are. Right? So that purity of I exist, that is the real you. And everything beyond that is something that you have learned to identify with. And once you get back to the pureness of I am, then you start to create the separateness between you and your thoughts, you and your body, you and your emotions, you and your feelings, you and your history, you and your story. And once you have that separateness, then it can no longer control you. Because something that David did teach us, right, is that anything that you identify with has the power to control you, and everything you disidentify from, you gain control over. So peeling back the layers of the onion, that I am just an observer and nothing more. Pure consciousness, pure awareness. Everything else is just layers. And I know it's kind of Buddha and like esoteric and all that, right? But you can deal with that however you like. I'm sure there's some people out there who think it's slanderous that I'm saying such things, and others that think, wow, you've hit the nail on the head, right? And so I'm okay with that. You do you, I'll do me, right? That kind of thing. That's the whole attitude of it. Is that there is no, and it comes back to like the very first topic of the evening, which was judgment. That's the whole thing, is there is no judgment. There's no such thing as a good thought or a bad thought or a good feeling or a bad, it's just a feeling, it's just a thought. It's only when you try to assign meaning to it that it takes on a connotation. And meaning is something you can choose. I'm going to stop there. If you have follow-ups, because I don't want to take everybody's time, but if you have follow-ups, call on me again.
Well, that's what hour number 2 is for. And Mike put some questions in the comments. Again, those of you that are not on the call or not here live don't get to see the comments. And Mike said, level 1 things happen to me. Level 2 things happen for me. Level 3 things happen through me. Is that correct?
It's not incorrect. It might be correct. It might be a little too rigid for my personal taste, but it's certainly not incorrect.
There we go.
Things happen through me, yes, but not always. Some things happen that are not through me, like when it rains, it's got nothing to do with me, right? There's like a duality to it. Listen, I'm sorry, I'm going to go into it. You got me started, Mike. You got me started, right?
Yes, please.
There is a dualness, and this is something I've learned. On one level, I have to have both of these. I have to have both of them, and I have to believe equally strongly in both of them at the same time, and they are complete opposites. And that is, it's got everything to do with me, and it's got nothing to do with me.
Yes.
Right? Because on one level, on one side of the coin, I am responsible for everything that's happening to me and where I've ended up, all the choices I've made. You talked about manifestation earlier and how, you think about it over and over and you're going to manifest the future. What no one seems to talk about is how the current reality that you think you're living has already been manifested by the things you did before now. The manifestation is already happening. It's not like, I'm going to suddenly do it and start now manifesting for tomorrow or next week. It's, I've already been doing it this whole time and this is where I've ended up. So on one level, the choices that you make are ultimately leading you to where you are and where you will be. And so it's all about you because you're the one who gets to choose. But at the same time, life is happening. And sometimes it's a tough day and sometimes it's an easy day and you can't choose which way the wind blows and you can't choose when it's going to rain, right? Understand, like, you are something that Mother Nature is doing, just like how a wave is something that the whole ocean is doing. And you're just a tiny part of a massive thing. And it's got nothing to do with you. And if something's really bothering you, realize that in 100 years, no one's even going to remember any of this.
Yes. Yep.
Right? Unless you're like freaking one of the very, very few, like Elvis Presley, Michael Jackson, something, like nobody's going to remember.
Yes.
Right? And so you have this duality, knowing that you're free to choose in any given moment, but you don't get hard on yourself for when things don't work out exactly the way you wanted in the moment, because first of all, you can't see the steps that haven't happened yet that lie ahead of you, kind of like what TJ was saying earlier about losing things in Minnesota, but it eventually years later turned out to lead to this amazing future that, you couldn't have predicted it back then, right? That kind of thing. But if you turn back and look now, back over where you came from, you say, well, it couldn't have happened any other way. It had to be this way, right? So you can only connect the dots going back, looking backwards. You can't connect them going forwards. And so you don't, I say you, I'm talking about me, but it's just the way I speak. You don't take on the burdens if something doesn't work out the way you had hoped it would. You just shake it off and you try again. Because now is not then. What are you deciding right now about what is really important and what is not? And always bring it back to that ing. It's not decide, it's deciding. It's an ongoing process, continuation. And if you messed one up, it's okay. You're still deciding now,
Yes.
right?
And Mike added a follow-up question. So I need to adjust my pathway and focus to produce a better present in the future, right?
Do you? If you think you do, then you do.
There.
I will not be the one who's able to tell you that. If you think you do, then you do. You know?
Yeah. Great stuff. Thank you, Elijah. Love it when you come on here.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah. Mark's got his hand up.
Like Holly, I have about 17 things I want to say. I'm going to try to fit them in. Someone relating back what Elijah said about the observer, TJ, I don't know if you know this, but you have no soul. You are a soul experiencing this thing called life. And, Lenora, you talk about thought loops. Well, sometimes there can be emotional loops too. And what Elijah said about what David talks about, you are not the feeling. You are not the emotion. You feel angry. Okay. And when you say, I'm angry, well, then that emotion controls you. Where if you say, I feel angry, now you get to control it. You reverse the flow. But you can do that same thing with thought loops. Like I said, you didn't have a thought, you tuned into a thought. But if you buy into that thought, it will control you rather than you controlling it. We identify, and the important part of that word, and you like language, Lenora, is I in identify. It is the I that determines whether or not you buy into that thought loop or that emotional loop. And when you disidentify, you get to control it, and what Elijah said about the ocean, again, we're just drops in the ocean of the universe, but sometimes those drops sparkle like you folks, and talking about the past and regretting past decisions, again, stay in Minnesota, leave Minnesota, again, when you pull on the threads of the tapestry of your life, you could unravel the entire tapestry by pulling on that thread, maybe the thread of destiny, I don't know, but the tapestry of your life would unravel if you were able to go back and pull on that thread.
Yep.
So you become what you were supposed to become, and the things that you identify with, and it is the I, the observer, the soul, that allows us to buy into them or choose not to. That's all I have to say about that. As Horoscope would say.
Thank you. And now, Holly.
Gosh, so much stuff here. I'm gonna have to come back and listen to this like 20 times before I digest even half of it. But while we've been talking, just a series of questions have come into my head, and some of these may land, some of these may not, but I'm just gonna share them. So one of the questions was, what if on the rare occasion when the universe tells you no, it's because it has something even better in store for you? What if when you get to the end and you're looking back, you suddenly realize that you've already accomplished more than was expected and you're actually exceeding expectations? What if the secret now is just to allow it to happen and you don't actually have to do anything more to do it, to get it? Do you think you have to earn it? Do you think you have to be given permission? Do you think you have to deserve it? Is being enough a state of being that is always present, in which case you are already enough? Or is being enough some future state that you're always becoming and can never reach because it will always be in the future? Then also, where are you giving away your energy? Are you giving it to worry? Are you giving it to guilt? Are you giving it to anything, are you giving it to loops? Where is it that all you have to do is, allow, step back, shut it down, and your energy will just flow back to you easily, naturally, effortlessly? So I don't know if any of those will even land at all, but those were just some thoughts that were kind of popping through my head as we were talking.
Great stuff as always. Elijah.
Fantastic thought-provoking questions. I want to share a story with you, true story, about me. In the UK, they measure blood sugar on a scale of millimoles per mole. And on that scale, if you reach 42, then you are considered to be pre-diabetic. Right? Below 42, you are somewhat normal. If you're in the mid-30s, you're quite healthy. But as you get to 42, you're considered to be pre-diabetic. And if you reach 47, then you are considered to have type 2 diabetes. Right? And obviously the higher it is, it's a measure of blood sugar. Right? In 2022, I went to have my blood test done, and mine was 63.
Whee!
Right? Not just diabetic, type 2, but very much so. Right? Dangerously high. A year later, in 2023, I went and had a follow-up blood test to see how I was progressing, and that number had increased to 96.
Okay.
That's called denial. That's called, oh my God, they're going to take my Coca-Cola away from me. Let me have one more can. Right? In 2024 and in 2025, I did not go for the blood test because I was afraid of the results. This year in February 2026, I had one done. 54. Right? So I am 70% of the way to being not diabetic at all, from where I was at my worst. I'm 70% of the way to not being diabetic at all, and 90% of the way to being back to pre-diabetic. And the whole time that I was trying to do fasting or trying to cut my sugar or trying to fix my habits, and I was only able to do it for like a week here and 10 days there, and sometimes I would hold it for a month and fall off again, I thought I was failing. I thought I was failing the whole time. I was hard on myself. Bro, you can't keep it up. Yeah, you do all right for 10 days or so, but then you fall off again, and you fall off again, and you fall off again. And I kept giving myself a hard time, and I kept thinking I was failing. But when the nurse gave me that result and she said it's down to 54, I said, you're fucking shitting me. There's no way. I smiled for like 3 straight days, guys. Because what I thought I was completely failing at was actually succeeding. All the effort that I was putting in that I thought was failing was actually succeeding. And it brought me back to the same freaking metaphor. I've told it to countless of my clients, the seeds growing into plants metaphor that I use, the Ericksonian one, right? Is that I was looking at the soil saying there's no plant there, it's not growing. But I was not taking into account the growth that was happening below the surface, the one I couldn't see. And so sometimes we judge ourselves, or we take these opinions where we think it's not working or it's not good enough. And I'm telling you, it's working. You just have to have faith, and you just have to stick at it. I'm living proof of it. I'm almost not diabetic anymore. Wait till you get 2027's result, right? Because I've got fire lit up under my arse now, which wasn't there before. I was terrified when I went in to get the results. You know?
Yep.
So yeah, I'm still diabetic, and yeah, I'm still unhealthy, but I'm like way, way, way healthier than I was when I thought I was better than I am.
Good.
Who would have thought, right?
Yes.
So keep at it. They say, if you're going through hell, keep going. You're going to get to the other side. You're going to be out of it. Keep going.
Yep. And if you're lucky, you'll be out the other side before the devil wakes up and realizes you were there. Mark.
Yeah, I saw a quote yesterday and it said, "Life doesn't wait for you to be okay. Just get up and get going."
Yes. Yep. Holly.
Just what Elijah said. First of all, thank you so much for sharing that. That spoke to me in ways that I can't even get into, but it meant a lot. Thank you. But another thought I had is, for those who are familiar with angst and energy cycling, they say the way it works with tumors is the first thing it does is for the first 28 days, the tumor gets bigger and bigger and bigger until you get to the end when it basically pops. Kind of like a pimple. It's the way I always imagine it, even though that's kind of weird. But yeah, just because you're going forward and it seems to be getting bigger doesn't actually mean you're not moving in the right direction. You are, if you're moving in the right direction. If you, talk to your gut, ask your soul. Your soul knows exactly where you're supposed to be, exactly where you are. And if you're right on track, it knows that. And if there's something you're supposed to do to change to get on track, it knows that. Ask it. It knows.
Yep. Good stuff. With 6 minis left. Any other ahas, epiphanies, inputs on this great stuff?
We do rock.
And I know that we got a lot of people on this call that are going through stuff. And I've been through stuff, as you guys know, and yeah, it's kind of like the fox, the mole, the horse, and the boy. Did I say that in the right order? Where the boy says, "I can't see the path," and the horse says, "Can you see the next step?" And the kid says, "Yeah." The horse says, "Then take that." I've been in places where I have no idea what tomorrow's going to bring or where I'm going to go or any of the above. And I've been fearful and I've been energetic and I've been hopeful. And I found that the energetic and hopeful got me through it quicker.
That reminds me of Alice in Wonderland. She says, "Excuse me, can you tell me how I can get away from here?" And he replies, "Well, it depends entirely on where you want to go." And she says, "I don't really care where I end up. And he says, well, it doesn't matter which way you go then, will it?
Yep, exactly. Holly.
I know they say this a lot, but just kind of putting everything together and what Mark said earlier about seeing the world through different eyes. You know, if you're ever wondering about where you're supposed to be and about how much you're accomplishing and all of that, you know, if each one of you, every person on this call, and without exception, if you could see yourself the way I see you through my eyes, you would never doubt any of that. So, you know, if there's any part of you that just wants to know how awesome you are, go ahead and see yourself through my eyes.
Mm-hmm. Right back at you. Mike, can you see me a little skinnier? Yeah, we can go to the fun house. Well, that leaves us with 3 minis. Any other comments, epiphanies, ahas that you guys want to share? I want to tell you, like Holly said, I appreciate all of you so much. Most of you know that when I started this 229 episodes ago, I had put it off for 3 years because I had a lot of judgment about, well, who's going to watch and who's going to be interested. What am I going to talk about? And da, 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 and on and on and on. I don't want to be this, but I'd like to be this. And we could have been 3 years farther down the road. And a pessimist could say, well, you could have failed 3 years ago or 3 years earlier because people weren't ready. Why coulda, shoulda, woulda? I watched so many people shoulda all over their lives. And all it leads to is a shitty life. You don't need a shitty life. There's enough should around the world right now, every day. And that's why the saying, I'm so glad that I learned it from Dr. David, is regardless of anything in your past, you did the best you could at the time with the tools, the knowledge, and the energy you had available to you. If you could have done better, you would have. So don't worry about looking at the past and shoulda, coulda, woulda. It happened. Now where do I go? Mark.
Yeah, again, I feel bigger, larger, more evolved, leveled up because of you people. And, you know, if you're, again, it's a constant incremental evolution that we're going through. And, you know, I've, place that I guess I was supposed to find this place, this platform, this, to get to the next level. And I appreciate all of you immensely by, but we're all on that same journey. And, I think what someone once said, that we're on journey with, with souls like ourselves. We find them and we join with them and we share the journey together so that we can become what we have the potential to become.
Well said. Thank you.
And amen to that.
And Lenora's got her hand up.
Last thing, won't take long. I know at the beginning you often ask for any positive things. I got a link today for the keynote that I was able to share in Chicago. So I'm going to pop it in there in the chat in case you guys wanted to see it. It's on Vimeo. And I'm eventually going to get it onto my YouTube channel. But it was one of like the most amazing experiences and so many good things. And then Guillermo came into the world from there, and that's how we ended up being here. And we love that. And it was just so fun. So I just wanted to share that with all of you. And thank you for all your insights. I can't wait to go back to hour 1.
And with that, yes, time has once again flew right by. I want to thank you all, those of you on this call, those of you watching YouTube, those of you watching the recording. If it wasn't for you guys, I would just be a rambling person on the internet. So thank you for showing up each week, helping me out with this, all of your input, all of your advice, all of your trust with what we've got going on. I really, really appreciate you. And as soon as I can figure out how to reproduce time and hand it back to you, you'll be the second to know. But until then, take care of yourself, live life, hammer down, enjoy it. It's out there to be enjoyed. If you need help, please reach out to any of us. I love this tribe. Looking forward to seeing you again back here in 7 beautiful days. Until then, love you. Bye.
You guys are amazing. Thank you very much.